This place is now a skeleton. What used to be a place where people celebrated a community and its culture. Now, as you can see here, closed for business and at the center of this intense investigation.
I saw dancing, I saw people smiling, having a good time, and then boom, everything just went to chaos.
Immediately thought about my mom. I thought about my dad, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my friends.
Both Herrera and Tanico were there on Sunday when around 200 law enforcement officers corralled the Alamo nightclub parking lot. Hours of yelling and crowding as each person inside was checked and processed.
This was a targeted enforcement operation in the Charleston area.
14 federal, state, and local agencies took part in Operation Last Stand. 116 warrants issued, 80 people arrested, and an undisclosed number of cocaine, an unknown substance, and U.S. currency seized. The investigation uncovered 10 underage patrons and 7 possible victims of trafficking.
Right here under our noses for all this time. Now, how did this happen? One way it happened is when you don't have strong law enforcement, this is what happens.
Deputies identified 2 behind bars as members of the Tren de Aragua and Los Zetas cartels. Another, a Honduran murder suspect. Benjamin Reyes Flores, who owns the Alamo, is booked at Al Cannon.
This was a cartel after party.
It leaves an open wound for the Hispanic and Latin community tonight as they face the aftermath. The operation prompting a surge on social media. Charleston's immigration group saying the way this raid happened, quote, eroded trust.
And yesterday, I mean, the flea market was empty. There was no one there.
This takes a long time to be built and a second to be broken. I think right now it's completely shattered.
We are being told by law enforcement that they do expect more developments in this case. That includes additional arrests and additional charges. They do say that the people are arrested, couldn't confirm where they are going next, but that they will face due process in the court of law. Reporting in Ladson, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News. What we're gearing up for might look like a joyride, but it's not your typical trip.
We're taking a right here.
Hoyt Sims depends on pedals to get him around. McMillan to Sproul to Rivers being his shortest commute.
It's not safe. Cars are asking to go across our lane like this.
Inattentive driving and a lack of proper markings makes Sims nervous.
It's like the space of these huge intersections makes them really dangerous, especially if you're taking left.
Many of the bike lanes are covered in debris. Sims said they're left this way unless it rains or floods. Inaccessibility leaves commuters at a dead end in many parts of town.
So all of those little neighborhoods, you know, they end, and there's no way for someone on foot or bike to get from point A to point B without getting out of the neighborhood and onto a major highway.
A report from Forbes ranked SC 34th in states with high to low numbers of registered vehicles in 2022. In the fourth quarter of 2024, CARTA reported a ridership of more than 7,000 every weekday. Demand on the uptick, but so are the dangers. South Carolina is considered one of the deadliest states for pedestrians. SCDPS reporting 145 people dead on state roadways since January, 21 of them in the Tri-County.
I bike every day, everywhere I go.
The data makes Petronella nervous, but like many in the corridor, wheels are her way of survival.
It's the only means of transportation I have. Bicycle. So that helps me get done what I have to get done.
Resources in the area are slim, and some will take dangerous trips for access. Arthur Doctor loves cycling, but grows concerned for his son's safety on the road.
People were more, there was less traffic, and people were more courteous to a bicycle rider, you know, than they are now. They're really not as courteous as they should be.
The trio wants consideration for those on foot, bike, or bus. Clear lane lines, emphasis on reducing inattentive drivers, and sustainable infrastructure.
I wouldn't be able to get the places I'm supposed to get at all. I might lose access to one of my jobs. I might lose access to my kid. And just imagine if that was your life every single day, because a car is not really an option.
In North Charleston, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A farmer. At 8, now 22, CJ Dillahunt's dream hasn't changed.
Yep, that's definitely me.
Well, it actually started before then.
It really began when CJ could walk. At 4 years old, he spent his free time helping to plant, harvest, and move goods from soil to market.
Most days are similar, but they all have differences. It's not just a job or a career, it's almost like a lifestyle.
Joseph Fields Farm is more than just a mere 50 acres of land. Every organic fruit or vegetable planted in this soil is an ode to decades and generations of resilience and the unwavering spirit of one family. Gullah Geechee heritage is at the core of this farm. Many of the practices and tools still used here come from a generational line of black farmers.
I was married to a farmer. I am for 53 years. It's a part of me.
It's what molded Joseph Fields Farm into a fixture on Johns Island, despite the industry's challenges.
It's no question about it. They've got to do it. Task is not easy, but it can be done.
And as CJ's grandfather passes the baton to him, he remembers that little boy on the green truck.
He has always mentored his granddaddy. Just what his granddaddy does, he calls him Papa. Just what Papa does, he feels that he can do the same thing. And I believe in my heart that his goal is going to be accomplished.
It's not something that you can just flip on and off like a light switch. I take a lot of pride in how I shape these rows and how I handle my equipment.
Reporting on Johns Island, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News. More than 90% of shrimp eaten in the U.S. is imported, and it's not like the shrimp that you'd find just off the Charleston Harbor. This shrimp is imported and dumped from mostly Asian countries. That makes local shrimping a dying occupation. For those who still use it as a lifeline, they're hopeful that these tariffs could keep them from sinking. Rocky Magwood's nickname comes from a life on the water.
That's a picture of me whenever I was a baby in my dad's arm in the ocean. He made a little harness to keep me to where I couldn't fall overboard.
His family line goes back to the 1700s through shipwright labor. So for him, the wheelhouse is always home.
I've spent more time in the ocean than I've ever spent on land. I wouldn't trade it for any view in the world. Magwood remembers Shem Creek being filled with more than 40 fish boats. 25 years later, it's closer to 8. He's one of the last here from a multi-generational line. There's some that's been doing it their whole lives, but I don't think anybody's generation will know. Not here. Magwood preps his boat for the season of catching wild shrimp, and he watches the boats around him fade. The popular seafood finds itself being imported at the masses and putting undeniable pressure on low-country fishermen. I didn't want to see another friend of mine go out of business because of this. Imported shrimp comes mostly from Indonesia, India, Thailand, and Vietnam. Magwood claims only 1% of shrimp imports are checked, and most of what is checked is sent back. The idea of importing shrimp raises alarm bells for health and financial security. We don't have money. We're just poor working people that are trying to make a living. Under the Trump administration, tariffs will sit between 27% and 46% across those 4 countries. Shrimpers lean on the tariffs for an economic boost. Magwood to protect and pass on the Magwood Pride legacy to his son. To me, it's all about this industry. Is for me to keep it going for him, and for him to not have to fight as hard as I've done. All we have in this industry is a lot of hope. Starting at midnight, more than 90 nations will face these tariffs, and uncertainty grows among small business owners as the SCBCC reports 44% of them who expect reduced sales. Magwood says although he is hopeful for a benefit from this situation, he is concerned about how it'll impact the people at home. Reporting in Mount Pleasant, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News.
Hi, good morning, lovely.
At the start to every school day, Angie Green made sure every child was greeted by name.
Elias!
Bye-bye. She's seen hundreds come through the drop-off line, and after 40 years of unwavering service, today was her last time reporting for car line duty.
Dear Miss Green, I really don't want you to leave, but congrats for retiring. I hope you have fun doing old people things.
Green has worn multiple hats since she first joined James Simmons. She earned a master's degree and became a school counselor 10 years in, and dedicated each moment to the children who passed by her desk.
This neighborhood is different. Charleston is different. I think the school is a reflection of that.
Green's journey is becoming less common to see, as SC Teacher reports an ongoing discussion for teacher retention.
It was really difficult being the only counselor with 3-year-olds through 8th graders. And even though it's not that large of a population, it was very difficult for one person to address all the social and emotional needs.
But the triumphs outweighed the challenges.
To just stand up and teach, some children will absorb it, but there's a lot of children that they need more than that from their educators.
And when students talk about what they'll miss most about their guidance counselor,
she's really nice and she helps us calm down.
It reminds Green,
like I did my job. Sorry. Yeah, like I did my job.
As Green retires the badge, she remembers the memories and a reminder to push for peace, passion, and purpose, always remaining close to the heart.
I think education gets a lot of bad rap, but if you find yourself in the right place with the right people.
Hey, Miss Gale.
Hey, Miss Gale.
You're going to take that last one?
It's really beautiful.
Reporting in Charleston, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News.
It's everywhere.
Evan Royer grew up fishing and walking the Marshview Trail. When he noticed the bottles, cans, and plastics sitting in the grass, it was something he couldn't unsee.
I was walking down that first section that we came through, and you just look out and it's just stuff everywhere. It looks like somebody went and just dumped trash bags out. I don't know, it's a weird feeling when you see how much destruction we've caused, just in a short area.
Royer now spends a few hours every month picking at the marsh and pluff mud. He's found car parts and tires, furniture and household items, more than 400 pounds worth since he started. Today we found at least half a dozen items with old labels, pointing to the fact many of these items have circulated Low Country waterways for years or even decades.
I won't say like aggravating looking at it, but it's like we've been given all this. How do we not take care of it?
Salt marsh habitats are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, making up more than 300,000 acres of South Carolina. The Low Country landmark, adored by many, acts as a home for wildlife, a filter for toxins, and a buffer from storm surge. Litter pollution severely disrupts the marsh's ability to function.
It's not only a problem here in the Low Country, it is a problem globally. It's not visually appealing to see a marsh with a lot of plastic bottles and things like that in it. Not great for us as humans, but also, as I said, it does really impact some of the organisms, especially those that are really important to us.
SCDNR says more than half the nation either lives or works within coastal counties, but cleanup along the marshline is often overlooked. Royer hopes to garner support from volunteers who can tag team the 1.5 mile long span, as well as other areas that need help, like Botany Bay.
Like if you're coming out on a walk or something like that, it doesn't have to be in the marsh, it could be in the woods, something, just throw a trash bag in your pocket. If we can't just go pick it up, what's the point in doing the rest of it?
Jackson Foxwell acts like any other kid. He's energetic, he loves to learn, and dinos are his favorite toy. But his journey has been nothing short of different.
August of 2023, Jax was a normal kid. He started his kindergarten year of school, and 2 weeks in, he was covered in bruises.
Jax was sent to the ER for testing.
They thought that it was leukemia.
Instead, he was diagnosed with severe aplastic anemia, a rare blood disease where bone marrow fails to produce enough blood cells.
We really didn't know a whole lot about it, so we kind of had to learn, like my wife says, a new language.
As fast as we could.
Jax was admitted to MUSC only weeks after filling out his first day of school chart. He spent months receiving weekly blood infusions and undergoing chemo and surgeries.
It is so rare that most of the families that we've met at Shawn Jenkins, their children don't have it. They have leukemia, They have other types
Sickle
of
cell.
sickle cell, childhood cancers, things like that, but not severe aplastic anemia. So he's kind of been alone.
The family learned Jax would need a bone marrow transplant. It turned out his little brother Brixton was a perfect match.
I don't think people realize just how much the medical stress adds up. It's not just the doctor's bills or the hospital bills, it's everything else.
Teachers and classmates recently welcomed Jax back to school after more than a year.
Even out of the hospital, I still miss it, so they gave me a welcome back poster.
He's still being monitored for his condition and will have to receive additional treatment into next year. But the situation never dims his day.
The kids are allowed to choose whichever toy they want. Well, Jackson chose a jump rope. And when no one was looking, he unhooked all of his tubes and ran out into the hall and started jump roping. His doctor said that out of all the transplants he's done, Jackson has been the most energetic child throughout the entire thing.
Now Jax gets to start with a fresh canvas.
You would imagine a child going through as much as he had would be really downtrodden, but he never lost that.
In North Charleston, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News.
Thank you, Caitlin. Excuse me.
I thought they were just going to kind of gut the place, but leave the exterior at least intact, as being systematically just disassembled piece by piece.
Terry Thompson is a second-generation homeowner. Inherited from his parents, Poplar Street is where he grew up. He remembers next door as a bungalow for a family of 6, but now it's faceless.
Nothing left but the brickwork. Anything wooden is gone. Anything plaster is gone. So nothing left but the brickwork. And that was shocking.
Like many Upper Peninsula homes, 59 Poplar Street was built in the 1930s. The middle sibling to 3 sister houses. Its brick steps and chimney are what remain.
It was a very valuable historic property that contributed to the streetscape. It was one of 3 sister houses. You can actually see identical properties to either side of it, and it's a very tragic loss for this neighborhood.
The Preservation Society of Charleston calls this an unauthorized demolition. The Board of Architectural Review denied the developers an after-the-fact request, which Alexander describes as what is asked for when more is done to a property than the city permit. A home on 440 Sumter Street shows a similar view. Built in 1938, its foundations remain, but walls have been replaced with new paneling.
We're frankly aghast at that and livid. I mean, this is a known issue. The idea that developers or owners can come in and have a philosophy of asking for forgiveness instead of permission, it just can't fly anymore.
The North Central and Wagner Terrace neighborhood associations grow concerned about protecting the area's historic fabric. The community is pushing for harsh penalties and communication with developers as they watch the area grow.
We want the residents to engage in dialogue with us and the developers as well.
The board has denied Poplar and deferred the Sumter site. If a request is denied, the developer is required to rebuild the structure to its former self. Without the materials to return it properly, Alexander still describes this as a loss.
Historic siding and windows and roofing and all of these handmade elements that contribute to the character of these buildings that once they're lost, you can't recreate them. And in this case, it resulted in total loss.
As Thompson recalls the Monopoly games and football matches on Poplar, he advocates for caution.
Doing what I can to keep it up as best I can. I was born here and I fully intend to die here. I understand that change is, you can't stop change, but to be careful. There are ways for people to be able to make a living, make their money without being destructive about it.
In Charleston, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News. You may see not one, not 2, but several thrift stores here in downtown Walterboro, each one with their trinkets and their deals. But what's different about this one?
In His Name Colleton is the only human services agency in Colleton County that focuses on helping the homeless.
The former mechanic shop turned thrift store is the agency's leading financial asset, where other funding resources are slim.
We've been able to take items that were donated from the community as well as give items back to those in need.
The Lowcountry Continuum of Care reported just over 4,000 people experiencing homelessness in South Carolina in 2023. The next year, more than 50 in Colleton County were vulnerable on an average night, out of 404 individuals across the Lowcountry.
The homeless clients we deal with aren't typically the ones you see on the side of the road with a sign or pushing a buggy. They're more hidden.
For St. Jude's Church in the Hickory Valley, room as a temporary warming shelter is running low.
This past winter, we had about 15 or 16 with us throughout that night. We really can only hold about 18 in here, and so that night with 16, especially with the snow, felt pretty crowded.
Rural communities feel trapped because they feel their pin on the map is creating a lack of funding, housing, and support.
I think a lot of people just didn't realize that we had a homeless population. It is a struggle. It is a struggle in regards to resources because we're in between a lot of major areas, bigger areas, and so we're often overlooked.
That lack of resources is prompting a major setback for In His Name Colleton, losing the thrift store that funded the scarce resources the agency had to give. Deteriorating conditions, too immense for the agency to upkeep. The agency says it hopes that community support will allow them to return with a larger space for services. Until then, the group will push for long-term attention and action for the vulnerable. Funding, prevention, permanent housing, and education.
And I saw people in cities and in their nice homes talking about how their heat couldn't keep up or their hot water heater froze. And I thought, you know, those are still creature comforts. There's people out there with nothing. I can't stand up in church every week and say, love your neighbor as yourself, if I don't practice that.
Reporting in Colleton County, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News. In just a year, Edith L. Frierson Montessori School went from unsatisfactory to excellent on its report card.
So what number would it be? 70?
71.
You got it, girl. Uber smart.
When Latrice Smalls took on the role of principal, she knew the work to be done. Edith L. Frierson, a rural school in Charleston County School District, was on the mark of low report card status.
We really did the work without knowing we were doing the work. I was determined to get out of that status.
The school took on new strategies, educating the community on where they were, providing tools and protecting instructional time, being intentional with their students. In just a year, the same school jumped up 4 levels to excellent.
A feeling that I can't even describe. The morning I saw that we were excellent, I couldn't believe it. I actually went around to every teacher's door showing them the computer because I needed to see that they were seeing what I was seeing.
When the school switched to Montessori instruction in 2017, emphasis on student morale was the priority. Classrooms are open and combine different grade levels, allowing for interactive and hands-on learning that gives kids intrinsic motivation to learn.
The students, were kind to each other. Teachers were kind to students. We kind of have a mutual respect for each other. Kids have a little bit more choice.
They make learning fun, and it's like, I really like Montessori schools, and it's really fun here.
Principal Smalls plans to expand on the resources that earned them that title in 2024 and maintain the status into 2025. The school has successfully enrolled 166 students as of the 24-25 year.
Focus on the growth, because the growth is what got us here.
Principal Smalls says that she hopes they can get the enrollment up to 250 students with the introduction of a new middle school program within the next school year. They do say they're actively recruiting educators and students. Reporting on Wadmalaw Island, Caitlin Ashbaugh, Live 5 News. For years, conversations with colleagues have collected Sullivan's Island history. For Hal Cost, preserving its memory was something he was born into.
We're a nonprofit civic group here on Sullivan's Island. History-oriented, preserving the culture.
Countless photos show the historic sites have changed. When you take a drive down Middle Street, you can clearly spot Fort Moultrie and Battery Jasper, Logan and Gadsden. In the distance, Fort Sumter sits among crashing waves.
We used to always go down there and, look into all the different little caves.
One historic structure is not visible to the eye.
Storms and tides and winds. It was not even here in 1791 when President George Washington came through on his so-called Southern tour. It had been basically washed away.
These palmetto logs behind me could be the building blocks to rebuilding the palmetto log fort at Fort Moultrie, otherwise known as Fort Sullivan. Those trees originally lined Middle Street, a reminder of the fort's strength, surviving 11 hours of fire from enemy lines during the war. In modern times, they've withstood countless storms, including Hurricane Hugo. Several preserved for the fort after being cut down because they grow too close to power lines. Now they serve new purpose, celebrating 250 years of American independence.
Long story short, we're working on it. It's still very early, still very preliminary.
The group has not determined cost, location, or design, but it will be one of several ways Charleston County celebrates. Cost's daughter falls into a sixth-generation line of islanders who hold history dear to the heart.
But Sullivan's Island was really my identity growing up. It was something that I felt connected to, just being a sixth-generation islander. You don't find that often here.
Reporting on Sullivan's Island, Caitlin Ashbaugh, 5 News.
Now the future of this
Administrators here in the affidavits we pulled say they share a, quote, fear of retaliation from that board and, quote, permanently damaging responses they had to student cases. They say this points to concerns of safety and integrity across all North Charleston schools. Despite its intended purpose to be a neutral decision maker by law, these affidavits say the board faces consistent shortcomings. In several cases, board members are accused of snickering, side conversations, sleeping, and bickering during hearings. Administrators claim they face challenges of credibility from the board when their statements are made under oath. One administrator attended an expulsion hearing for a fight they say they witnessed. They were questioned for video evidence where blood could be seen on the ground. The board asked whether it was blood or, quote, juice. Many of the repeat offenders are reported back to schools on probation, 50% from one administration receiving a slap on the wrist. Affidavits also claim the board will mention race in their decision-making, pointing to minority children who are often brought to expulsion by, quote, white administrators. 2 administrators at alternative programs in North Charleston say they've noticed inconsistent treatment across nearly 2 decades of their district service.
It is about the consistency across the Charleston County School District, which we know is over 100 square miles, and how do we centralize discipline.
I remember talking to my wife, and the first thing I said was, one, it's about time, but we just need that consistency. And I'll keep saying consistency for the rest of my life. It's what's best. It's what's best for us. It's what's best for those students.
2 separate documents claim fighting has increased across those schools, with one educator mentioning 150 students within 3 weeks. Administrators and educators claim a continuous lack of punishment and inconsistent decision-making creates a, quote, unsafe environment for students and district staff.
And Caitlin, any changes to the current status of the constituent board service would need to come directly from state lawmakers who on Monday said that they would be taking this conversation to Columbia. We asked every single member of the CCSD constituent boards if they wish to provide a statement or comment on this, and those can be found on our website under live5news.com.